This is Kenya's the #1 opera in the world, according to Thorin. You're watching Thorin channel, that is also known as the #1 existent fan in the world.
I'm here for another episode of Reflections, and my guest for this one is going to be ScreaM, who is a veteran, originally Source, then CSGO, now VALORANT player, and we'll talk about all those things in this interview. ScreaM, first things first, I have a question, just because I'm really old school and I'm from 1.6, so it's actually a question. Maybe you don't know I'm going to ask it, but to me it's obvious, which is, why did you take the name of that Swedish player in CS, the one who's called ScreaM with the same M? Just for my own interest, what would you say to that?
Man, I mean, first of all, man, thank you for the invitation.
Sure.
It's an honor to be on your channel. Yeah, it's been a while. We have been talking about that, man. But finally doing this. I mean, this question is the first time actually someone asking me this question, because I mean, I was young and I didn't know the player. And
right.
One of my friends just told me to put his name, and I just used it. You know, like there's nothing. Like I was not like watching CS 1.5 back then when when ScreaM, the actual like real Swedish player. But I mean, props to him, man. He's a legend in the game as well. So it's a bit weird, but I think nobody knows him right now. I mean, all the youngest, they don't know him. So good question, man. Good question.
Well, here's the good thing. Actually, not long after, around the time your interview comes out, I've done one with him as well, and asked him the other version of the question. What did he think of your name? So here's the thing. The reason why I also wanted to ask, aside from the fact you have the same spelling, is because, like, as you say, I think you would have been about like 9 years old when he was playing or something. Like, he was playing a long time ago. Because if a lot of people don't know ScreaM, you actually started to go into like actual French lands in Source when you were like 15 years old or something, right?
Yeah. I started going to lands at 15 exactly. Yeah. My first LAN, 15 years old, man. It was a long time ago.
Was there no problem going? Your parents didn't mind you go to the LAN?
I mean, in the start, like, you know how parents are. They're a bit afraid. They're a bit scared. They don't know this aspect of competition in video games. Like for them, it was just like me playing video games at home, like just having a bad schedule, having a hard time to go to school and stuff like this. But they didn't know there was actually a part of the game that has a competition. And the first time I went to the event, I had to make older people talking to my parents, you know, like trying to explain them how it works, like where it's gonna be, and my parents actually following me at this event to actually see and to understand. So after 1 or 2 times, they actually supported me at every event, and I did many small events when I was younger. So it was nice, man.
Were you actually someone who, like, if people think you're famous for your aim, did you always have good aim? Even when you started CS, did you have skills?
I think I'm a hard worker, I think. I mean, I think the passion, like, as soon as I started Counter-Strike when I was a kid, the first time I launched the game, I was like a kid. Like, I was like so happy, like,
sure.
so impressed by everything, man. Like, the flashbang coming to your eyes, like the weapons, like everything was just so fascinating to me, and like I just fell in love with the game, you know. So I think when you fall in love with something and you do it for so many hours, then you develop some skills. And I think a part of my personality is that I really like things to be really. I'm a very perfectionist person as in real life, so. It's a part of my gameplay as well, so it kind of shows in my gameplay, I would say, and yeah.
One of the cool things about how many players from Source got to be pros in CSGO is some of them got to be these big superstars, but a lot of people might not know because Source was smaller than CS 1.6, especially the French scene. It was actually a very tight-knit community. It was all the same people at the LAN. So can you give me a sense, in the early days when you started going to these like circuit LANs, what sorts of players were there? Who were on your teams? Were there some players we'd know?
I mean, you're right. Like the first time CSGO came out, I mean, for us, Source players, first of all, we were 1.6 players. They were legend for us, you know. They were like really legend for us when we were watching Forest, Get Right, and at some point, for example, I had like ScreaM _right in my nickname when I was playing Source. So we kind of looked up to these players, and I remember Navi as well on the 1.6, really crazy times. And like for us, we were like the small community on Source, and I think for everybody else, but still it felt like home, you know. Like there's not many players, but we were talented. We enjoyed playing our game, and it was a really good game source for us. But when CS:GO came out, and we had to kind of mix up the two communities, 1.6 players, actually legends of CS, and the small the small source players that have to come and prove to them that they can be good. And I think we did. I think we did, because source players, they have some individually really good aim, I would say, compared to the 1.6 players. And the 1.6 players, they had the experience we didn't have, so they dominated the game for a long time, man. And but yeah, I think that was, for me, I was like way younger, obviously, but that was one of the best time, I would say. Like mixing up the people I looked up to, and in a new game, in my opinion, the best game ever, CS:GO. That was like a dream, and then of course winning tournaments against them, competing against them every time. For example, NIP, VeryGames, the rivalry like we had, like with Existence, like shox, Smith, all these legends from Source. They didn't play CS 1.6, they played Source. So like these guys were also legends to my eyes, to my eyes, because I was way younger than them, and I started. They were already like VeryGames and stuff. So yeah, man. For me, I saw everything. Like I had to climb a mountain slowly and to get at their level, because every one of them was a legend to me when I was younger. And then when you achieve that, obviously it's a dream, and yeah, I'll always remember that, man. Crazy.
In Source, the most famous team, obviously, you've mentioned a lot of the players, was VeryGames, and they had that streak, or what was a streak, but they just won like 40 lands or something crazy over a few years. Because you played a load of these lands, including a bunch of finals and stuff. Well, how good was VeryGames in Source?
I mean, man, VeryGames was dominating so hard with Existence as an IGL. I think they were like the only team considering as a professional team, because they were earning some money, not a lot of money, but like still. When in your head, back then you're like, oh, they're actually gaining money with the game, a salary, like they were taking pictures as a team, having a nice merchandise, like everything was just so professional about them, and everybody wanted to play with them, and when we were facing them, it was really hard because they were very disciplined. I think they practiced better. Everything was just better for VeryGames, and the aura, the aura VeryGames had, the logo, the team, it's just like very dreamy to play for them. And obviously I didn't play for them in Source. I played for them in the beginning of CSGO, and that was a big dream for me, man. Like big dream, and it happened. So it was good times as well. We had some good tournaments as well. But yeah, man.
I don't know if you remember it this way, but because actually looking at stats wasn't actually the biggest thing back in 1.6. People used to look at HLTV a little bit, see who had the most kills, but there wasn't like HLTV rating and stuff, I don't think, back then. So people weren't as obsessed. But what's funny is when CSGO came out and this concept came along, you're actually the first player I remember. I think this helped, because when you were in that team, Imaginary, and VeryGames was the top team, people already saw when you started going to lands, like you had the best stats, like the headshot percentage, you had all these really high ratings, and then people just thought, like, he must be the player who joins VeryGames next. Do you remember something similar about how you got to join VeryGames?
I think everything built up on Source already, because at the end of Source, I would say like me and shox, we were already playing in a team together. Like it was Annexis or something like this. I don't remember anymore. But at the end of Source, me and shox were like the best Source players at this time. I mean, I wouldn't say the best players, but like we were like really good together, and it built up slowly. Like they started to know me on Source. It's not like something that happened in CSGO on CSGO. So when I switched to CSGO, obviously in the beginning of CSGO, I really loved the game, and I grinded and I showed what I'm capable of. And VeryGames, they were still a very good team, but they were losing against NIP, and they tried to take some players, and I was one of them. So really grateful about that. It was great times, man. I think I was at my prime in the beginning of CSGO. For sure, I think like individually very good.
Well, one reason why, if people are old school, they'll remember, is in the beginning there was a bunch of changes to the game, and famously there was this period where, if anyone knows what I'm referring to, they'll know by this. It's where you could do this AD movement, and basically this was the best for you, right? This is when you were at your absolute peak. You were kind of unstoppable, right?
Yeah, I think it's because I practice so much this way of shooting and this way of moving that it was a big advantage for me, obviously. And then CS:GO, yeah, they kind of fixed that a little bit, so you kind of had to stand still a little bit more. And obviously, CS is a spraying game. Like
Yeah.
most of people are spraying, and when you spray at someone standing still, it's easier, right? And like even now there is like way more tagging, aim punch, all of that. So CS is very different from what it used to be. I mean, it's not bad, it's just like very different. So it impacted me, like obviously, because it kind of affected my gameplay. But then I tried to adapt, you know, going by the years, and I still think I was pretty good going.
Yeah.
I was pretty good until at some point where I played the game way less, and I got like a bit affected by my team stuff. But obviously, this is other questions. But like, yeah, pretty much.
Along those lines, though, one question I have is when the game was like that, like I say, you were at the best, no one could beat you basically. But then when it changed a bit, I always wondered, you were still very good, and you could obviously your style meant you could get a lot of very stylish skills. But I always wondered, did people ever try and convince you, like, oh, just spray with the M4, you know, don't do the tap, like, because to them maybe they think you're showboating like Ronaldinho or something, you know? Was that the sense?
I mean, bro, I got so many of these. Like in most of my teams. Like I wouldn't say names because I don't want to do that.
Sure.
But I got some people actually telling me like all I want to do is getting headshots. Like all I want to do is getting headshots, and like I don't care about the rest. I don't care about anything else, and like kind of in a jealous way, you know.
Oh,
like
wow. You think it was unfair?
Way. Yeah, I think it happened that it was unfair, and then obviously some people try to convince me to play way more spraying, like way more like try to not think about headshotting too much, you know. So for me it was really hard to hear all of that stuff, to be myself, to adapt to the game, and obviously I tried at some point to please the people telling me that. I tried to be a little bit more complete. I tried to fix some of my stuff in my teams, just to be a better teammate, a better player. But it didn't work out at this time. At this time, I think I didn't have much experience. I was still at the moment. I just wanted to headshot people and like to do my thing, you know. Today is very different, obviously, but at this time it was really hard to tell me that. It was really hard, even like not only tell me to spray, but also tell me to be more tactic, more strategic, more.
Right.
Like to tell me to be a different player, you know, because in my head back then I was just a player that wants to revenge, wants to kind of the cleaner, like just kill people and be good at that, right? But then they started to tell me, oh, you need to be better at this, better at this, better at this. I mean, I think it was not a bad intention, most of it, not a bad intention, but I think at this time maybe it was not the right moment for me, or maybe it's my bad, maybe it's their bad. I don't mind it, but like, just didn't work out at this time for me to change, you know.
One of the things people who only know CSGO won't know is I feel like shox became just very popular and everyone sees him a very smiley guy, top player, but no one really knows, I feel like, in CSGO what he was like in Source, because some of the stories I've heard in Source was they make him sound like a fucking rock and roll star or something, like he's just like in one team, then he's kicked out the other team, then he's turning up, then he's telling the in-game leader like fuck off, and then they kick him out. And so who was shox when you met this guy? Who was he?
Bro, shox, man. What a long story, man. Shox. I mean, first of all, the first time, the first memories I have with shox is pretty much me being a fanboy, because I on Source, like he was the best player by far, like on Source, like in my opinion, of course, but like in a lot of people's opinion as well. Like very complete player, very good aiming, very smart, winning clutches, everything you want about a player. Very stylish as well, very stylish in the way he plays. I was a fan for sure. At least I was looking up to him. But then obviously then you start to get to know the people behind the nicknames. You start to make friends. You start, to see all the flows, the things, like everybody. I mean, I wouldn't say flaws, but you just start to see how someone is. And the thing about shox that makes me that's funny, and that's like in French community is always like being said, is like shox is the prince, you know, he's the prince. So
Sure.
like we would even call him the princess, because every time he wanted something, he was gonna get it. Like he was
Has
gonna
to
get
be
it.
his way, right?
Has to be his way.
Yeah.
He has to get it. Like he was, you know, kind of the prince, man. Like basically the prince. And if he wouldn't get it, he would be annoyed, like not talk to you, stuff like this. And that was funny. But I mean, we all respected him because he was the best player. So we kind of followed what he wanted, right? Like in CSGO when we were in Titan, we were in the gaming house, and he left the gaming house because he didn't like it, and like he left the team. And then he always wanted to play with shox, with Smith, sorry.
Yes.
So sometimes he left some teams to just play with Smith. Sometimes he tried to make some teams because he just wanted it. You know, like everything he wanted, he did it. And props to him, man. I mean, like I have nothing against that, honestly. Like it might have sometimes he might have not the best the decisions to do, but I mean he followed what he wanted. So I think that's a good thing, I would say. But he's not a bad guy for sure. Like to me, he was the best player, the best French player, maybe ever. Like
Yeah.
for me, maybe ever. I mean, considering all the years, right? Like not last year's, because obviously, like now we have Zaiwu, we have
Yes.
some strong players, but we don't have that many, right? In France, we don't have that many.
No.
Like Zaiwu, right? But
Basically.
other than Zaiwu, shox for me, the French GOAT, right? In my opinion.
I can actually tell you were someone who vibed with him, because if people remember in your career, there was like a bit in the middle where maybe it went down a bit, but then when you two reunited and you were in the G2 lineup, you were both at your peak.
Yeah.
It was amazing. You were just running over teams together, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, G2, that was for me the best professional team I had. Like in terms of chemistry in the team, the results we had. We didn't have many tournaments, but we still had a good run. I think where we could touch the top
Yes.
tier team, you know, and that was a great feeling for me, because it didn't happen a lot in my career. It didn't happen a lot. I always been a little bit unlucky for this, or maybe it's my fault. It doesn't matter. But I never really felt that thing many times. And when I felt that with shox, I feel like we were, you know, the best duo. Not because we were the best players, but because we have also teammates working for us, you know. Like it's not like me and shox were just carrying our team. No, we have players around us. Our PK body just going in for us. Don't care about no ego. And we were like the players with a little bit of ego. So we kind of very similar, me and shox, and together reunited with some people who doesn't have any ego. Very good mixture, man. Great feeling. But then after, obviously, like very big deception as well. Very big, for me at least, very big deception. One of the biggest deception I had, and probably the biggest in my career, man. Because as I said, we were doing good, and suddenly everything stops for not really any reason, just because of greed, I would say. You know, greedy. Because we were not maybe the top one team. So they tried to make a super team at this time, and it's because of greediness, you know. They want to be even
Yes.
more, and that was a bit sad for me. So it was really hard to deal with this in the next months, you know.
Well, let me ask about that then, because if I look at your career, even though, like you say, maybe you were unlucky in some tournaments or some majors, I would say one of the biggest problems in your career was you were a guy who just played the game, fragged, and you kind of seem like, you know, you're just a chill guy. And then you weren't a part of, like, basically, if people understand, you know, the TV show Game of Thrones, where it's all like political intrigue, and it's like this person has a plan, and this person, and what's going on? And the problem you had is you were just playing, and they were all like in, I don't know, Discord or Steam messages. And like you say, and the classic thing in the French scene is whenever they do this French shuffle, it's like everyone knows except the person getting kicked, and then they just find out one day, and basically you almost were the victim every time, right? Like every time they did a shuffle, it felt like you got left out a bit, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, Bro, you summarized it very perfectly, like Game of Thrones, man. Like, that's how I felt it actually. Like, I don't know if I can say that, but like in French we say knife in the back. You know,
Yes,
like,
yes.
You get like by your friends.
Yeah,
and
betrayed.
Betrayed. That was a betrayal for me many times, but at this particular time, G2, because what happened is that we actually qualified for major, right? Or I'm pretty sure we qualified for major. When we qualified for major, you know, all the French teams, it was envious at this time, I think, like Kenyas, Apex, coming, hugging us, right? Hugging us, Shoxy, hugging me, everybody's hugging each other. Right?
Oh, this is another famous thing. They're also a bit fake in French, right? The one who hugs you is the one who's going to cut you usually, right?
Man, that's a bit the problem I had, like,
right.
And that's why I didn't know how to feel about that, because I think it might be a mistake as a human being. I'm a very naive person. You know? Right. I don't really think about all that little sneaky things, right?
Yeah.
But that kind of surprised me when this happened, because we hug each other after the games, okay, and then we go to the hotel, and then there is a totally different atmosphere. Like Shoxy, announcing this news that he's gonna make a new team, and you know, like that was really surprising, and not only for me, like for others as well, obviously. Like,
sure.
but yeah, that was big betrayal in my opinion. As you said, in the French scene, I don't know if it's only in French, but obviously that's the experience I have. Not know honestly, and maybe too much ego, too much greed, you know, and as you said, I was just a player that wanted to play the game. So I was not into these little messages in the back or this and this. Oh, we should maybe do this, maybe do this. And some players in the community French team, they were like this. And I mean, it's they're trying to be always on top, being a step ahead, taking the opportunities, trying to be in the best position every time, and it worked for them, man. Honestly, when I see how they did, it worked for them until at some point, of course, but like it worked for them for many years. Like they always ended up in the best teams somehow. Sure. Like, and I mean, like no offense, they were good. Like they were good players. Like all of them are pretty good players. Like,
of course,
maybe better than me, no problem. But like, you know, I think it's not like so much better. It's just like pretty even, I would say.
Right, in this interview, we're just going to ask whatever thoughts I have or whatever things you're talking about. Like, I don't want it to totally be like one of those French for Carb interviews where it's just all the gossip and all the drama, but I do have a question a bit like that, along with what you're talking about, which is, at the time in the French scene, I even gave him the nickname, the Kingmaker. The player NBK, I always thought was the ultimate player doing what you're talking about. Somehow he always found his way into the best team. Then if he didn't like someone, they were out of the team. And I feel like, I don't want to speak for him, but I feel like after the first time he played, he just didn't want to play with you for some reason, or maybe he had a different view of you. What do you think?
I think for me, like, first of all, NBK was one of the players that was really stable in the French scene, like one of the best players for sure, 100%. Even now, I don't know what he's doing now. I mean, he's obviously playing with my brother in the same team. So that's a funny story, actually. But, like, you know, I think NBK, he was the kind of guy, like, one of the smartest guy in the scene. So whenever he's going to feel something going bad, not going his way, he's just going to do whatever it takes to make it, like, the way he wants, the way he thinks it's going to work better. So the problem I think he had with me, if he had a problem, what I think is that when he saw me shooting headshots and only headshots and try to beat some records, because obviously I'm not gonna lie, at some point of my career, I was trying to focus on just headshotting people, like to beat the records. Let's be honest. I mean, that's what I like to do. At the same time, I felt very efficient in this way. I was not like lacking, even though sometimes I'm gonna miss here and there because spraying would be better at this particular situation. But at the end of the day, I felt very efficient and I felt good at doing this, and I won many clutches, headshots by playing like this, right? But the problem I think NBK was that one day, I remember I was on Nuke on vents, in vents on Nuke, and you know, when you're down the vents and the guy is going up, I mean, down the ladder, you don't see his head, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so what happened is that I wanted to shoot him in the head, but I didn't actually shoot. I was waiting to see his head. And I think when NBK saw this, he was really annoyed. He was like, "No, man, you can't do that, man. You need to kill him." And I mean, he's right.
In that
100%.
case, yeah, of course.
He's
Sure.
right 100%. But after this, you could feel that he was a little bit like...
Right, it got in his head or something.
Yeah, it got in his head. He was like, "No, man, I don't want to play with someone who wants to only headshots." And yeah, I mean, it's understandable for some reason, of course. But
Yes.
Yeah, man, funny.
As you said, even though in G2, RP Corp was quite old at this point in time, he's not the same player from Source in VeryGames. If you were someone who was looking up to the legends, it must have been really cool to get to play with him, though.
Yeah, man, honestly, I had two players I was really looking up on Source. It was RPK and shox. RPK because he was the most stable aim. Like, he was so good. Every time getting triple kills on defense. Like, he was the tank, you know. He's very living up to his name. And shox, right? RPK and shox. So whenever I got to play with these two guys, you can imagine how I felt, especially in G2. And in G2, I got a lot of credit as well because I was doing pretty good, but you know, it's a weird situation, you know, when you get more credit than the people who you look up to, and yeah, man, it was a really dream coming alive for me. And then obviously I kept playing with RPK for a couple of years. I think like envious.
Yeah,
man. I mean, this guy, I think I have nothing to say about RPK. He's like very mature person, like very stable. He's like, he only wants to win. He's not the kind of guy who's gonna do these kind of things, you know, talking in the back and like try to sneak in some messages here and there. Like, bro, he's one of the guys I probably respect the most, and probably everybody respects. I think, like, very big legend.
When you got to join VeryGames, this was obviously when Existence was a huge name. In fact, even in early CSGO, because if you think NIP kind of just played a bit loose, he was even the guy in CSGO with all the smokes and all the flashes and stuff. What did he live up to the hype? Is he the tactical mastermind people say, ScreaM?
Existence, man. To me, he's the most hardworking guy I've ever seen. You know, like, he was the kind of guy reading books about how to be a leader, right?
Right.
Like I have a huge respect for him, man, because first of all, he's the guy he's the first actual professional player on Source I met in real life, because he's from Belgium, obviously.
Right.
Like, so the first time I met him, it was on this little cyber thing in Brussels. We went there. I was really shy, you know, and I see him, and then I need to prove him that I'm not a cheater, because everybody was saying I'm a cheater. Right. And then I'm playing good in front of him, and he's like, "Oh no, you're actually good, man." Okay, then, you know, building up this relationship, he's like a big brother for me, like a legend, man, a legend. And then when I joined VeryGames, seeing his way of working, I understand everything, man. This guy, he deserves everything he had because of the passion he had, like the amount of work. Like, obviously no one is perfect, but he's a real leader. He's a real leader. And I don't think it's even talent or mastermind. It's just like the hard work, the way he looked outside CS to bring it in CS, and like to build up this actual team, this system, the system he had. And I think until now, I haven't seen a leader like him until now. Like, even like years after, like everything after, I have not seen a leader like him. And I actually think he had the best way to build up a team, and like to, you know, to create this team together around the system. Not like playing like a ranked, like mix, like everybody just individually good. Okay, let's do something like this. And I felt that's why VeryGames was so good, because they were dominating, because they were like the team together. Revenge kill, all of that stuff. He bring all of that stuff, like everything. So he's kind of the father of, in my opinion, French community. Like him and KQLY, you know. But I don't know KQLY so much, but. Right. Existence and him had a really great rivalry as well.
I wondered in your case, though, because I know when I talked to shox, that one of the reasons why shox in existence kept playing together and then going apart, then playing together and then going apart, is they kind of had like a different view on how you play. Like, obviously, shox wants freedom and to make the mid-round calls himself, whereas existence is the guy who has like the tactic and it's set and you go on this timer. I wondered in your case, did you also have a bit of friction there? Did he want you to play a certain way? Did he give you any freedom?
I would say that's the good thing about existence is that he's good at making teams play together. The bad things about existence is that he doesn't know how to use his players, right? He doesn't know how to use his players in their strength. Like, for example, me, I don't think he used me in the perfect way. I'm not annoyed at him for anything like this, but I still think, for example, shox, he was better at utilizing the players in their strength, in the things they were strong at. For me, at G2, giving me the role of like rotator, like kind of not first on attack, being like the second, the third one, like all these kind of details that made me really good at G2. That was coming from shox. Like his system was way more simple, but more towards the strength of the players. And existence was like, he doesn't care who is playing against. Whatever he wants, everybody just follow the system. Everybody just follow the system. It doesn't matter. Like, the only thing he was pretty good at is using his operator. I was gonna say his upper in a good way. Like, he was pretty good at using them and teaching them how to play the game. But that's the biggest difference between these two. Like, existence is a very, very strict game. Doesn't matter who he plays with, and shox really looking with who he's playing, and then try to be doing the best things with what he has, right?
One of the other big names in your era was, of course, Kenny S, who you got to play with in this VeryGames team. It seemed like you always had a really great connection together. Who was Kenny S to you?
Yeah, Kenny S, man. I mean, we're kind of the same age. We kind of like came together on Source. Like, he was obviously like joining VeryGames on Source with his AWP, and he was pretty good, man. Like, the thing is that Kenny S and me, like, I think it was like a brother relationship.
Right.
When we were in the gaming house, I remember in Titan, like we used to do everything together, everything, going to the gym, watching animes, like everything together, you know, try to build up this team, you know, this team bonding. And like, we felt kind of on the same page because we were kind of same age. And, you know, like, I think Kenny S is one of the guys who has a really big honest, you know, he's very honest.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
He's going to say something, he's going to feel something, he's going to tell you. He's not going to hide it. He's not going to talk in your back. He's not going to do all that stuff. So I really felt good being around him, like very good. And yeah, man, wish him all the best, man. This guy, really much love to him. And best upper ever in the history, I think. Like, I mean, maybe not now, but we're getting old, man.
Sure. In the early days, as you say, when you joined VeryGames, one of the reasons they took this gamble is because they used to just lose to NIP every time. And that did continue on a bit while you were there. It was when shox came later that the win started. What was it like? Like, how good was NIP at this time? Why were they unbeatable?
Yeah, as I told you earlier, I think NIP had such... Like, there's many things. I think we were kind of how do you say it? I don't know, but like...
Intimidated?
Yeah, intimidated, sorry. But like, playing against Forest, Get Right... I told you, when we were on Source, we were looking up to these guys. Like, every time we were watching 1.6 games, Navi against, you know, SK, like, things like this, like, that was really crazy to us. And when we started playing against on CSGO, first of all, they had such a better understanding of Counter-Strike, like, of fundamentals, revenge kills, like, playing around with time on attack, like, on terrorists, you know, like, all these kind of details that just made them better on, you know, just small things. And it took us some time to understand that. It took us some time to get at their level. And VeryGames in the start was not enough, even with existence, like system, hard working and stuff. Like, they couldn't, I remember we couldn't understand how they're winning every time. Like, how is it possible? And when I joined them, we were actually close. I remember the first game. I remember the first game on Nuke, winning 13-2 on CT on Nuke, and then getting 14-1. Like, we didn't understand. It was like, oh man, what's happening? We were so close, but I mean, there were some good signs, but still something was missing. Some small things were just missing. And then, as you said, when shox came in the team, shox is the player that has the talent, man. I think this guy is a pure talent because he doesn't play much the game. He's just very smart guy. So when he joined us, we somehow found the receipt to beat NIP, and from there, I think CSGO, everybody just got so much better and better.
The only thing is, though, when you guys started beating them, and you were beating them each tournament, each time 1, 2, 3, the problem is when that first major came, maybe fans now don't know. If they look it up, they'll go like, oh, interesting, Fnatic won over. VeryGames was supposed to win the first major, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, we were at our prime. I think at this time we were at our prime. We just won a tournament in China. I mean, in China with not the best teams in the world. I think Fnatic was in China.
Yeah, I'm not wrong. They were.
Fnatic was in China. So yeah, we won China. Yeah, man, we were feeling very good at this tournament. But I think first major, the pressure was high. The pressure was high even for myself. Like I was, at this time you could press tab, the scoreboard. You see the spectator on top. Bro,
right.
It was the first time. Usually when we were doing this, we see like 3,000, 4,000 people watching, and then when I did it, I saw 100,000 watching the game. I remember, man, I was like, oh no, man, it's hard to handle the pressure individually, very hard. And yeah, man, like honestly, not much to say. Like we should have won, in my opinion, and every major was really bad.
Yes,
really bad. I mean, at least for me and my teams.
Yeah.
Like, really bad experiences, man. Really bad experiences. As individual, as a team, never worked out, man. Never worked out.
Yes. Actually, I had a question about this, which is, in your career, as you say, like the majors weren't your best tournaments, right? Since your style is based, your games are based a lot on aim and expressing your skill. You're not the guy who just only uses your brain to win the game. Do you think the pressure of the major makes it harder to play that style?
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. I think it's so much like playing this style of headshotting people. You need to be calm. You need to be lucid. You need to be having no pressure. Try kind of in a good state, right? And when you play a major, obviously, I got some good games sometimes, but most of it we got out of groups most of the times, and I think I was not the only player who felt like this. No. I think there was something blocking us from majors, man. Like it started to be a curse. Like I don't know honestly, but you're right. Like playing a style like this, being in a state of pressure is not good. So. And major was like the highest states, man. Like, for sure.
If people remembered the famous incident when KQLY got VAC banned, and then what also happened is a bunch of players actually on the team you were playing had to like leave the game because they admitted they like cheated or whatever, or something bad, or it's max fix, something like that, right? I remember famously you did a stream, and on the stream you said something like, that should have been my spot instead of KQLY, or something. Like I should have been in Titan, basically, right? And it implied that when they did the first threat shuffle, you thought you were supposed to get a spot because you were a top player, right? So did you feel as though in this time period, like you should have been in one of those two teams, either LDLC with shox or with Existence and Kenny S in Titan? You should have been in one of these teams.
Yeah, I think that was the first times I didn't really understand the shuffles. I don't know. I think I was not a complete player for sure. I was lacking some stuff. Obviously, I was not perfect. Like no one is, but like, I think I don't know. They just try to make some teams without me. I couldn't understand it, but yeah, man. I don't really know who took the decisions of this, and like maybe I think it's because after the majors they were like, nah, we need someone better individually, or I don't know, man.
Right.
But at the end of the day, there's not many players individually.
No, not in France as well. Yeah,
that there's no much, man. So I don't know. They just tried some things and it never really worked out. I mean, a couple of times, like it actually did. Like in France, they won like 2 majors. So I mean, props to them, man. I was happy for them as well. Like it's nice, man. But for me personally, was not like the best experience at this time. But the good thing is that I could stream a lot. I could enjoy the way I play because I was enjoying competition, but I was enjoying the game first of all, right? So when I stream and I hit some headshots, I play the way I want to play. No one's telling me what to do. It feels good, man. So I had a great time actually at this time. I had a great time. Just not professionally as a competitor, but yeah, but it was one of the only time it happened. So yeah, this is one of the two big times. This time and then the G2 time, right, in 2016. This is the two highlighted times I have in my head where it was really really sad for me. Like I was kind of sad, and I actually remember I was about to stop my career right before I joined Epsilon. Right before I joined Epsilon. So I think.
Oh wow!
I don't know.
So only a couple of years in, yeah.
I don't know when that was, but
2014, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that was right after I got kicked from Titan. I'm pretty sure. So when I got kicked from Titan, I was so depressed. I was like, man, I knew we had a really bad tournament at the major, but I don't know, man. It felt bad because that was after the gaming house, all that stuff. That was also what I was talking about when people are trying to tell me to be another player, you know, to be better at this, try to be smarter, try to be this, you know. I couldn't understand it. So I was like, man, I think I'm gonna stop. You know, I'm gonna stop the game. But at the end of the day, this was just a thought that went in for a couple of days. But like, I love the game too much at this time. So and I had some ego. You know, I was like, nah, I'm gonna stop after this. Impossible. So I continued. I went in for the stream and I was like, no, man, I'm gonna show them. I'm gonna actually show them I'm really good. And I started streaming. And after this, I think what happened was Epsilon or Kinguin. I don't remember, man.
Yeah, you went to the international Kinguin. I was going to ask about this. Yeah. So one of the cool things is actually back then, now everyone knows this because all of CS2 is people who have multinational teams, just like in VALORANT, you have people, everyone speaks English, everyone. But back then, obviously, all French players and all French-speaking players just only playing French teams. And this team was the one that had like Dennis from Sweden and Makalele and Fox from Port. It was kind of a rain. It was a really weird mix. What was it like to play in this team? Must be very interesting.
Man, I mean, as you said, it was the first time, man. I think it was on Counter-Strike ever. Like, so, you know, being a part of this was such a great experience, man. Like, such a great experience with such nice people. Like, I really enjoyed working and playing in a different atmosphere than French, because in French, like, I knew how it was. Like, you know, it was. I was feeling very different from them, feeling very different in the way I am, the way. Like as a human, like as everything, I was feeling a bit different. And when I started playing with international teams, everything felt way more natural for me. I don't know how to explain it, but like just being myself. Obviously, I had more experience and you know, building up this international thing where I couldn't even speak properly English. I'm still bad, but at this time I couldn't even have a sentence, man. So it was such a learning time for me, a great experience, and the fact that we actually did well, not like a top team, but still
you decent. You top 8 in the major.
Yeah, I mean that was decent, man. Decent experience, decent results, like decent history making. So being a part of this, obviously, and I think every single one of them is remembered this year. Like Michael, I remember when I talked to him, is, you know, let's do it, man. Let's do something like this. I think he was the one actually having the idea of this. And yeah, man, actually, really good memories, very good memories in my career.
One part that wasn't so good in your career was towards the end when you played in Envy, and it was kind of like these were the people left over off one of the shuffles. It was like you, Happy, RPK, like we say, Sixer, a few different people, right? When you had this lineup, right, this is the one I wanted to also ask you about, because it's not just that like the team wasn't that good. I remember watching loads of these tournaments, and it was like, what happened to ScreaM? Like something just happened. Like it's funny because I actually did watch a bit of VALORANT, so I saw you in VALORANT, you were insane again. Like your skills were back. Did something happen in this time period? Did you feel down? Did you lose yourself or something? Why wasn't ScreaM in Envy?
I'm gonna be honest. The time, whatever happened after G2, the 2016 thing where shox decides to make a super team without me, and even though like just the fact that we split it, you know, we split it when we had like such a beautiful team, you know, in G2. such a beautiful team together. It really hurted me, man. Like it really hurted me, and like very disappointing, and I really lost a big motivation, and like for a long time, for a long time I was just like, why are people like this, man? Why are people like this? Why does it have to be like this? Like what is wrong with me? I was asking a lot of questions like this, and like it was, I didn't have the same motivation I had, and like I think it showed. It showed when in, I don't know, the way I played, the amount of hours I played. I don't know. We still, I think envious funny is funny because it was one of my best times in my career, but not for the good reasons. It was just because we went out to some beautiful countries. We traveling a lot of tournaments, a lot of travel, a lot of, I was younger, so I was enjoying myself. And then, great experience as a human, but as like CSGO, as like competition, I was feeling really bad, man. And like when I was in Envious as well, it was the first time we actually had coaches, if I remember pretty well.
Yeah, I think so.
And that part is very important to understand, because you need to understand, I was coming from G2, and I was really annoyed that I got kicked, right? I was really annoyed that I was getting kicked, and then there's a new coach coming in that didn't play the game for 4 years, okay? He comes in, and in my head, I'm the guy with the most experience, right? I'm the guy who was a top 2 team, like just a couple of months ago, and like I have the experience. So whenever I'm trying to like have a point in the game or something like this, I feel like the guy who doesn't play the game for 4 years has to listen to me, because that's what I feel is the most logic, right? But we had some issues between the coach and me, like having a point in the game, having some conversation, like arguing, all that stuff. So I was really annoyed about the atmosphere as well between the coach and me. And like, no offense, because he's actually a good friend of mine. It's just like in a professional way, but it was very hard to work with, especially the first year. And yeah, man, like after that, I feel like this is the moment in my career where I started playing for money,
Right.
I started to change my mentality. I started to be someone else, where in the first place I'm a passionate guy. I'm giving my heart, But then when my heart gets broken, it's really hard, It's like in any relationship,
Sure.
right? Anything in life, right? You don't want to give it anymore. You don't want to be nice anymore. You don't want to be patient. You don't want to be patient anymore. And that kind of stuff still happened to me in Valorant, because that's why I actually took a break for a year, man. Yeah.
Well, one thing I would ask is, around this time when your game wasn't that great, I've always told this story that I always say to people, there's like a certain era of CS names that I feel like got to a bigger level than anyone else. Like, even though in the later days there was lots of stars and FaZe and, all these American teams, etc. I guarantee you, if you Googled or if you just went and asked some random kid in the CSDM server in India, they would know KNS, shox, ScreaM, Pasha, Forest. These are the names they would know. Maybe they wouldn't even know people later who won more tournaments and more prize money. So I don't know if you know this, but I feel like you had a lot of fans who were always pulling for you. I mean, the joke is, I've even sent you all DMs in this time period, like, you can get it back together, man. Like, just focus on yourself. Like, did you feel like a lot of people were pulling for you in your career?
Yeah, man. I mean, I was kind of surprised, because you know how it is. I'm not a player who got like a lot of big trophies. I didn't get a lot of trophies, man. I didn't get a lot of trophies. I was not like the best player in terms of stats and stuff like this. But somehow I always got so much support, man. I always got so much support. I don't know why exactly. Like, maybe because people enjoyed my game style.
It's the playing style. Yeah, you're an entertainer, right?
Yes, maybe. I don't. I'm very grateful, but in my head, never really understood it, and because for me it's natural. Like, obviously there are some times I was going for headshots and stuff, but it's been like this all my life, like
Sure.
my whole life. Since I was a kid, I remember like I just wanted to headshot people. Like, I don't know, man. It was always what I loved to do. like since ever I started CS, like from the really beginning, even I didn't even know about competition that I was really like, man, I just want to shoot the heads, I don't want to shoot in the body, I don't like it. I just want to shoot in the head. And it followed me like my whole life, and even until now it's like it's very hard for me to be different.
Yes.
And yeah, man, I'm very grateful for the support everybody had for me. Like, a lot of course, a lot of people who gonna be like hating, gonna be like, yeah,
Sure.
but it's not good, not efficient, didn't win anything. I mean,
Sure.
I totally agree. Like for some reasons, like you're right, but at the end of the day, I think I think I'm one of the most passionate guy in the game. Like, I never played for money, like ever, just until last couple of years. Until last couple of years, because I'm growing, I'm getting older, and like I got, as I said, like kind of head broken. So I needed to be a bit more selfish. Yeah, that's the word. I needed to be more selfish.
One thing I did think was almost perfectly done in your career was when you brought that mouse out, because I remember even saying, because they even made as the trailer, just like a little frag movie. I remember thinking, this is genius, because all the little noobs are just going to see this trailer and be like, oh my God, I've got to get that mouse. Like, that seemed perfect. Like, if you're the guy who's the headshot guy, you should have your own mouse, right?
Man, I mean, I remember meeting the guy from Final Mouse, man. Like, it's the most crazy guy I have ever met. This guy, I mean, like not in a bad way, but like in a very good way. He's I don't know what the word is, but he thinks so much of crazy things, man. And
visionary.
Yeah, he's a visionary, man. And like every single time I met him in Los Angeles. I remember we were trying to film the Final Mouse publicity, and like he was like, every time I was looking in the air, like thinking about some crazy stuff, man. I was so impressed by this guy. So I'm not even surprised Final Mouse is doing as good as they are today. Like. Honestly, GG's to them, and obviously the one tap thing.
Perfect.
Very great history, man. It's great to be a part of this. Like, honestly, I'm very grateful for Final Mouse, and I think it was great for the industry as well. Like, great thing, man. Like, even if it was not me, if it was someone else, man, I think it was a great thing, and yeah, like we were talking about doing some. Version 2, it might happen one day, we'll see, but really great memory.
One thing I always wondered for players like you, shox, Forest, is if someone's a really skilled player and they've worked hard at it, but they also have the natural talent, they have the aim, when you play against the other best players, do you actually feel like I'm the best player though? Like, if I'm on my game, if I play 10 out of 10, I'll beat this guy, even if it is Forest, even if it could be anyone, Marklov, well, that was the old version, I guess, Simple or something. Did you feel like that when you were on your game?
Yeah, man. Honestly, the thing is that on Counter-Strike, especially on Counter-Strike, not in Valorant. In Valorant, it's not like this, but on Counter-Strike, when you have the confidence, on Counter-Strike, no one can touch you. Like, you're so confident, you feel like you can, I don't know, you can, move some mountains. Like, no one can touch you, man. Like, no one can touch you. Like, and especially for me, I feel like I was probably one of the most confident guy in terms of aiming, taking the duels. Like, I was never scared of taking a duel, like, ever in my career on CS. I mean, not the whole career, but until I would say 2017, 18.
Yes.
Like, until this point, I was always so much confidence because I was working so hard. I was playing so much of the game. I was enjoying my time. Like, and players like shox as well. I remember, like, we were like in French, we were like, like hyping each other. Me and shox, we did this a lot in our career. Like, we had this thing where every time he was gonna cheer me up, every time I'm gonna cheer him up, like motivating him, and like I think that's also why me and shox were so good together. Like, we had this little relation where we could hype up each other, and like, yeah, man, until our ego took part of
Sure.
Yeah, unlucky, man.
Even though, as we said, the NV period wasn't great, you did in that team though get to play with Happy, who was the guy who had won those majors. So what was Happy like as an in-game leader?
I think Happy was Happy was a very smart player on how to make himself in a good position and how to use people in his advantage.
Yes.
Like he was not the guy. He was not the. I mean, he's a very smart guy in real life. I think really smart guy. One of the smartest guy I have ever met, probably. But as an IGL, more towards the selfish, right? More towards the selfish IGL than the sacrificing IGL. Like there's people like Existence. I mean, shox is also kind of selfish, but shox is the prince. We always know he's a selfish guy. He likes to bait a little bit. He likes. It's a part of his thing. Like he's a star player, so he has to bait a little bit. Like he has to use other people in his advantage a little bit, and Happy was very good at doing this. So I think he was very smart at doing this. I think that was one of the problems as well we had in Envious. But that was also one of our strengths because I mean he was doing good at doing this, but it's annoying when you in your team.
Sure.
You see your IGL being like this. You're like, it shouldn't be like this, no?
Yes.
Maybe it should be RPK or ScreaM to be a little bit more baiting. More. I'm not saying I was not baiting because I was probably because when I say baiting is like using other people in my advantage because obviously like you have to do it. Yeah, you have to do it. Especially when you're a star player, that's how it works.
Yes.
And we had some controversial conversations, some debate about this, some regrets, some things like this about Happy. But overall, it was a great experience to be with him. Like great guy, like one of the honest guy as well. Like I don't know, man. I enjoy to be with him. I mean, as I said, Envious was not my best professional experience, but as a human, being around these guys, it was good, man. It was good, and yeah.
One of the last
he won two majors, so
you can't take it away from him. Yeah,
I can't take it away from him. He was one of the best players at some point. So
agreed. One of the last teams you played in, you got to reunite with Existence. You went to this weird GamerLegion team where it was like you and Existence, HS from Estonia, and then like Swedish players. Which was like, what the fuck is this team? Give me some thoughts on this weird team. What's this?
That was, I don't know, man. That was kind of the last actual team I had. No,
it was.
It was the last team I had, man, and yeah, it was. I was really happy to be playing with Existence. Really happy, man. Like. So happy, but the thing is that as I told you earlier, Existence, his problem was that look, when I was younger, I didn't have a problem to be listening blindly to anyone because I didn't have any experience. So if any player is gonna tell me something, I'm just gonna listen without thinking because they have the experience, I don't have it. Okay, yes. I'll just follow. I was a follower, but with the age, when I got in GamerLegion, I had a lot of experience at this time and. Existence, the problem he had is that as I said, he couldn't use the players in a good way. And you know how the meta is on CS right now and how it's been like this for a couple of years. It's very individually based right now. It's very like people have to be good individually. Like just the rules are important. Everything is so important. And I feel like we were still playing a game that was a bit old. Like. And at the end of the day, we didn't last long with Existence. We played like maybe a couple tournaments. We got rid of him, and I think that was the biggest mistake in GamerLegion.
Yeah,
getting rid of him middle season was a big mistake. And like I know I was a part of this as well. Like every player was like, yeah, I think we should probably go for another shooter, someone who shoots well. So we have 5 individuals, like all that kind of stuff. But then. The team afterwards was just looking like a mix, like just like everything was just getting worse and worse and worse until the day I will remember. I think probably forever is like we were having like I think 3 officials in one night, 3 or 4 officials, and like we play 2 of them, we lose. I think like I'm having pretty bad games, like pretty shit games, I would say, and. In between the 4 games, they decide to not play with me, right?
Oh, okay.
We were like on TeamSpeak. Yeah, okay. We played the 2 first games. they move, they go in another channel. 5 minutes later, okay, ScreaM, sorry, but we're gonna take another player, man. We're gonna take another player for the last 2 games, okay? I'm like, I mean, yeah, like I have never seen that in my life, but okay, sure. What can I say? Every player was okay. The coaches were telling me that. Just like, yeah, man, the players don't want to play with you. Okay, man. I mean, yeah, I know I had a shit game, but like, does it really work like this when you have a contract and stuff? That was the last experience of CS I had. That was the last games I had. Like, literally, I got kicked in the middle of the night because of some reason. Obviously, not my prime, but still, I think it shows how bad the communication is in the team and like how bad people are, you know, like because doing this for me is not professional. It just looks like a random thing, man. But yeah, then after this I was, you know what, I'm not gonna give energy to this anymore. I'm just like, okay, man. When they told me this, I was like, okay, man. I mean, sure, it's better like this. If they don't want to play, it's fine. I'll just go on the bench. I'll get some money for free, and then I will do something else in my life. And at this time, I was pretty much focused on other things outside the game. So, I mean, okay, man, like, no problem. But last experience of CS, so very disappointing, very, very disappointing. And I think everybody was disappointed as well as like people supporting me. Everybody was disappointed in this ending, and then I go on Valorant. Because Valorant just brings me this new thing that, like, CS broke my heart, man. You know, CS broke my heart.
Right.
Okay, it brings everything CS so much love, but at the same time, it broke my heart like so many times. Then I was like, man, I can't do this anymore. It's so hard. And then at the same time, Valorant comes out, and I'm having a good time. I'm not gonna lie. The game, it's a new game. Obviously, more childish thing graphics, but
yeah.
At the first, I was saying this to myself. Yeah, it's a bit childish and stuff. But when I played it, I was like, actually, this game has so much potential. As like strategically, as like individually, I'm feeling good on the game. You know, it feels like I'm 15 again. So why not? It's gonna hype me again. You know, maybe it's gonna hype me again. People are gonna be hyped if I go on this game and, like, I don't know. You know, just try some new stuff in my life, because CS hasn't been working for a couple of years, you know, like Envious and GamerLegion, really tough experiences, and yeah, that's pretty much how it happened.
In your CSGO career, who did you think was the best player you played against? Who was the one who impressed you?
So I'm not someone who's really easily impressed, because especially on CS, because CS is a very individual game. So
Sure.
like, I was not impressed with a lot of people, but I would probably say Simple. Like, for me, he was the most impressive by far, and he was the only one I was really impressed on CSGO. I mean, unless I'm not talking in the very beginning, because like, I was still in love looking up to Forest, Get Right, like in the very beginning of CSGO and NIP, I would say, like Forest Get Right, especially Forest Get Right. But then when we started playing the game, like for a couple of years, like no one really impressed me, and I was really, really confident to be the best player, like as like individually in terms of duel, you know, not like the smartest player, like not at all, but in terms of headshots, I know I was one of the best, if not the best, in my head. So as a fully player, I was pretty impressed with Simple, especially when he started to take the operator, the op after Liquid.
Yes.
When he started playing op, I think this is where, I mean, actually with Simple, the second I actually saw him in my life, I was impressed with him, because I remember at StarLadder, I don't know which one it was, the first StarLadder I ever went to in Ukraine. He was like, I think 15 or 16, I don't know, man. He was a kid, and he went to the event as a viewer. And there's an aim map tournament at the event, and the kid beats everybody in my team. He beats shox, he beats Smith, he beats Existence, whoever. He beats everybody in my team, like one by one in front of me. I was like, man, who is this kid? And it turns out that it's simple. A couple of years ago, it's the best player ever. Like, I mean, it's probably the GOAT of Counter-Strike, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I had a really huge respect to him. Yep.
As we say, like your style of play, like it was your style of play, it was your passion for the game. You had a lot of fans, but you said it perfectly. If people who are just a little fanboy, say some 13-year-old looks up on Wikipedia now, he's going to say, wait a minute, this player was top 10 3 times on HLTV, he had the stats. They're going to say, like, where's the major? Where's the championship? Just like in football, you know, you'd say, where's the trophy or where's the World Cup or something. Do you have regrets yourself? Do you feel like you should have done more in CSGO or you could have done more?
I think there's always regrets, but I mean, I enjoyed like, I probably wouldn't change anything, you know. Like, I have regrets, but I wouldn't change anything really. Like, I try to be myself the whole time. I try to enjoy as much as I can, improve, be the best aimer. I try everything, like, as much as I can, put a lot of passion in the game. And it's unfortunate if you don't win, but at the end of the day, it's a team game, right? Like, it's a team game, and I think back then I was lacking a little bit as a player. I think today I'm looking back. I learned a lot. I learned a lot as a player, like the experience I have. So when I joined VALORANT, and you know, I was in Liquid. I was feeling really at my prime because of all the experience I had, and like, I was having a different approach of the player I want to be as well. Just not only just headshotting people, but actually, you know, having much more of a complete, you know, like competence. You know, like having more competence, just like be a more complete player. And on CS, I couldn't be that guy. But at the end of the day, it's also what makes me, you know, on CS. It's what makes ScreaM on CS as well, like, be the headshot guy, and I don't think I have any regret for that. You know, it's people, it's what I'm known for. It's what I wanted. You know, it's like the only thing I didn't have is some trophies, but you can't really do anything against about that, right? Like, it didn't happen. Like,
yes,
it's a team game. It didn't happen.
Right, we'll do some VALORANT stuff now, but first I have one last question, because if someone's a CS fan, if they don't watch the VALORANT part, this is the question they want to hear. Will ScreaM ever come to CS2? Is it ever something possible?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not close to this. Honestly, I'm not close to the comeback. I'm thinking actually about it, because the difference between CS and VALORANT is very huge. Like, on VALORANT, you can't really express yourself individually as like on CS.
Yes.
On CS, like the multi-kills, the headshots, the mechanics of like actually being the one handling the weapon and like controlling it, the control of the game, everything is much more controlled, much more skilled. And that's something I miss. I truly miss, because like on VALORANT, you don't have this. So I'm questioning myself. The only thing is that CS2 in the actual state is a bit problematic, in my opinion.
Okay.
But yeah, we will see. I might come back before totally disappearing, you know?
Before you retire or something, sure.
Yeah. I'm thinking about this, like, at some point, I'll come back. Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen, yeah.
Okay. Everyone needs a support network, and mine is, of course, my Patreon community, the Scrominati, who, in many ways, they're the Sonny to my Cher, saying, I got you, babe. So this video and all the others on my channel were kindly supported by the following names: Ahmed Hadju, Matt Pugnaccio Rakula, Adam Tomlin, Animosity, Jensen Go, Tosh, Toucan, and you know it. Jerky's Minion, my main man, always going to be referenced, one of the best patrons of all time. Would you like to ask a question in my AMA? Maybe you want to suggest a topic or a guest to say on my channel? Do you want teasers, find out who the upcoming Reflections and Talk to Thorin interviews are? Maybe you want to do one of those long discussions where you get to set the topics we talk about. Well, if any of these or others appeal to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Scluminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.